welcome you all. I'm Joanna Reagan. I'm on the board of the Community Club and I'm responsible for the town hall meetings we've been having. This is our third one this year. We had 4 last year, and we're really pleased that there's such a good turnout and there's so much interest. What we try to do in these meetings is not necessarily present just a program, but give you a chance to participate, to ask questions, and that's certainly what I hope is going to happen tonight. Once again, I also want to thank the Native Daughters for allowing the community club to use their facilities, and we always have our meetings here, and greatly appreciate that. That's awesome. Today, of course, we're focused on the race for supervisor for the 4th district. We'll be hearing from and asking questions of incumbent Tom Tryon and challenger Lee Seaton. Before we start there, let's do Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Michelle, did you, our President Michelle Houston, did you want to say the words or?
I can improvise. All I really would like to say is thank you so much for coming, and would really like to thank all of you that have come and supported the Murphy's Community Club in our efforts to raise funds for our beautiful park throughout the summer, and we look forward to seeing all of you next summer and also at our holiday party, which is upcoming in December. And this year we've chosen to join our friends, the Rotary Club, smile, Jim over there. The Angels Murphy's Rotary Club, since many of our members are the same, we thought it would be fun if you all got together and had a party. But get your reservations in, we are limited, and we look forward to seeing all of you, and thank you for coming.
Lee and Tom, are you going to join me up there?
I don't know, I like where I was. Hi, Tom.
One thing I want to begin with is that you notice I do not have a big stack of cards to ask anonymous questions and so on. The goal here is to have a chance to learn more about our candidates, to ask specific questions that you're interested in, and to have them respond and in some cases have a dialogue between them. We're hoping that that gives a little bit different perspective than maybe some meet the candidates night and so on. So we'll see how that works. We'll start with each of you. I'd like you to Tom, I'm going to start with you. You can give us a little background.
I'm Tom Tryon. I'm the incumbent supervisor for District 4. It's been very much an honor serving as your county supervisor. Been a lot of progress in the district. As you look around Murphy's, why you see that the community has had a lot of changes since 1983 and before. We've grown a lot. I think the growth has been well-focused, well-organized, and has contributed to the overall economic and social well-being of the community. I have 3 children. My wife Denise is in the audience. She's 4th generation from Murphy's. I'm 4th generation from Angels Camp. We had 3 children. They all went through the local school systems. They all graduated from Bret Harte High School. One graduated from Stanford and then University of Chicago Law School. One recently graduated from Santa Clara. And we still have one, we still have one in school at the University of Oregon. I expect this will be another very vigorous campaign. I hope I will be able to continue with your confidence and your support. And I look forward to meeting you further as we advance through this election cycle. Thank you.
Thank you. Lee?
Well, my name is Lee Sington. I'm currently Vice Mayor of the City of Angels. I've been on the City Council in Angels Camp for about 7 years at the end of my term this year. I chose not to run for re-election. I figured 2 terms is enough for anybody. And after I made that known, I was approached by a number of citizens from throughout the community asking me to run for the Board of Supervisors. I did accept that challenge, and it's been a great experience for me. Meeting many of you at your homes, in your work. It's been an opportunity for me to grow and understand the area that we live in. Murphy's is the queen of the Sierras. It is a truly unique community, and I think that it has benefited from the vitality of its citizens. Those citizens are a diverse group. As I've walked from door to door, I found that people aren't all alike. There are many different points of view. There are many different perspectives, many life experiences. But as the community club and First Friday show, it is quite possible to bring people together and create something that's better than each individual separately. That's the kind of spirit that I think we've shown in Angels Camp. It's the kind of spirit that I believe will best serve the citizens, not only of the 4th District, but the citizens of Calaveras in total. Because we are ultimately a very small community. You know, everybody in Calaveras could fit in probably the giant stadium, you know. Might be an interesting experience. We did that sometime. But the idea is that we do have a small community. It is vital for our economic well-being, for the quality of our life, that we work together more effectively. And that's the commitment I make to you, to serve as a supervisor who will bring people together, will identify the best solutions from all of the perspectives, all of the points of view in our communities, and we'll be able to move this community forward. Thank you.
I have asked both candidates to think about just 2 questions each that they're going to be asking the other candidate, just to start us off on our questioning process. Tom, would you like to ask Lee?
Okay. This is the format that we used last Wednesday in the Enterprise Forum in San Andreas. I would just ask a clarification on the format. If I ask a question and the answer to it, am I allowed then to come back and give my own answer to the question? Or am I shut off from answering the question? I would think for clarity it would be good if we could come back to ourselves.
Okay, that's fine. I think our goal here is to understand where you're coming from. And
The first question I would ask Lee is why he voted against the Highway 4 bypass in Angels Camp. That had been the top priority for about 50 years in Calaveras County. That bypass overcame the Valley Springs bypass or any other road improvements in Calaveras County. When it came time to the last vote about a year and a half ago to approve the Highway 4 bypass, that 2 members of the City Council tried to kill that bypass. Lee spoke very strongly against it and voted against it. And then in conjunction with that, in the brochure he's handing out, he claims credit for having obtained and worked hard and helped obtain the financing for the Highway 4 bypass. And I don't quite understand how that assertion can be true, since before Lee arrived in the county, when we had a local transportation commission, before we had a council of governments, I was on the local transportation commission. We signed a tri-county agreement with ourselves, Amador, and Alpine, and part of that tri-county agreement was we would pool our resources. And our part of pooling those resources was the Angels Camp bypass. For Amador, it was the Plymouth bypass, which they did first. And for Alpine, it was, I believe, a passing lane that they did up 4, and also a passing lane over on 88 by Kirkwood. But my question is, how do you claim credit for having obtained the financing when, quite frankly, the deal was struck with the financing prior to your arrival in the county? And how do you justify having voted against the Highway 4 bypass, which is so critical to the commerce and the prosperity of everybody on the Highway 4 corridor above Angels? Thank you.
Well, thanks. I like that question. I'm very happy to explain why I voted against the controlled access agreement for the Angels Camp bypass after having voted in favor of the relinquishment agreement to take the old portion of Highway 4 back into the city street system. The vote against the bypass controlled access agreement was because the design is what you see today. The Great Wall of Angels Camp, the ugliest highway project since 108 to Sonora, I think. I fought to have that design dramatically scaled down to be a surface design, to have an intersection at Murphy's Grade Road so that it would in fact link our systems together with circulation instead of creating a freeway approach to just simply take people as rapidly as possible away from our communities. And basically deliver them to Bear Valley, I suppose. Another component of the design is not only is it ugly and not in keeping with the rural character of the county, but it also is over $70 million in cost. That's a lot of money that could be used in a lot of other ways in our communities and throughout the state. So that was the reason for the 2 votes. It was a 2-vote night. Paul Raju and I voted to approve, along with the rest of the council, the relinquishment agreement, and we both voted against the bypass control access agreement, which was the design document, if you wish. That's why both of us, including, and I voted, and I'm happy, and I would vote against that design today if given an opportunity. But you know, the second part of Tom's question addresses the funding. There are 2 components there. First of all, I lost that vote. It was a 3-2 vote. I was in the minority. Okay? You know how long it took me to get over that? Just about as long as it took for the next agenda item to come up. We had our opportunity to discuss the issues. We collected the data. We made our arguments for and against. We voted, and then you move on. There was no attempt to go back and replay it or exact some toll on other members for how they came out and voted the way they voted. I was very comfortable moving forward. As a member of the City Council, I also serve on the Calaveras Council of Governments as one of our 2 representatives. The Calaveras Council of Governments was a key player in bringing the monies needed to create the funding for the Highway 4 bypass. Because we all know prices have been rising all through the 50 years that this project has had some legs on it, we were finally at the very critical moment when there was sufficient money to launch the project, but there was a missing element of that. And that was a necessary infusion of addition of just a few more $1 million to get that project actually out to bid and construction to begin. It became very clear that the Tri-County agreement would need to be supplemented with additional funding. Now, in order to get that funding, it was necessary for the Council of Governments to approach the Calaveras Transportation Commission, which is the super agency that oversees all of our state projects, and approach them in order to get monies that the people, including Calaveras, had voted in bonds to reduce, to mitigate or reduce congestion in the state. Much of that money was originally thought it would be heading straight to LA. The Council of Governments effectively, and we have another member in the audience of that Council of Governments back there in the kitchen, we were able to make a presentation to the California Transportation Commission, and they freed up money that was originally intended for urban areas to bring to our rural area so that bypass could be built. So there's two short answers to the question that Tom asked. I voted against it because it was a bad design. Well, I lost that vote, so I'm big enough to go on, and given now, let's make it the best project possible for our communities. Let's make it work. And if that needed additional effort to bring that funding to the community, then I would put all of my energy in behind that and working with the Council of Governments, and we effected, and we were successful. And that project is going forward now. Thank you.
I would like to make a pitch here to watch the time and to try to keep the answers reasonably. I know that they're complex issues, but I think I don't want to have a stopwatch and I don't want to have to wave anybody down. So please be aware that we've got a lot of things to cover and so on. Tom, did you want to
Yes,
respond?
I would like to respond to that. I don't really think that is sort of leads critical to obtaining the funding. The agreement was critical to obtaining the funding. All three counties went in and said, we have a shortfall because of the increase in cost. The California Transportation Commission said fine, because they give it a very high priority because of the regional aspect of the application, and the other two components had already been funded. But I want to go back more to, not so much to the design, but to the alternative route that was selected, because I don't think the problem is so much the design. I think it should be controlled access, because you want the traffic flow. The problem was, in my opinion, was the selection of the route, and the alternative route was selected. That was not the optimum route. I did not support that route. The lead agency for that project was the City of Angels. The City of Angels selected that route for basically internal political considerations. So I think once the city selects the route, it's a little difficult for the city then to complain about the consequences of the design, because that design is basically trying to accommodate the same design for Highway 4 that we have from Angels down to Spence Ranch and from Copper down to the county line. And even, I'm not real happy with the design per se, but the alternative for Murphy's and for everything above Angels is, if you have gridlock in downtown Angels, where we're sort of heading, we don't have a bypass, then I will tell you what the Highway 4 bypass of Angels Camp will be, and that will be to run all the traffic up the grade road and through downtown Murphy's to Highway 4. That will be the Highway 4 bypass if we had been successful in filling this. Secondly, I have spoken to Bill Hutchinson, who was the deciding vote on this prior to the City Council taking the vote as to whether to proceed. I encouraged him to support it since he was I was told somewhat undecided, but when I spoke with him, he seemed fairly committed to it. I did speak to our Public Works Director and told him if the City Council voted it down, the county needed to be ready to step in and become the lead agency for the Highway 4 bypass. Thankfully, that was not necessary. But everybody needs to understand, if that had been killed, what the Highway 4 bypass of Angels Camp would be. Once you pass the intersection of the Murphy's Grade Road, and there's gridlock in downtown Angels, it's Murphy's Grade Road and it's going through downtown Murphy's. And to me, that was entirely unacceptable, and that bypass needed to go forward. Thank you.
Okay, Lee, your turn. Do you have a question for Tom before we then go to public hearing?
Well, the project was 50 years in the making, so I certainly don't claim to have been there at the beginning. The vote was on the specific proposal before the City Council. If we voted that proposal down, we would have reviewed the next proposal that would have been offered. This isn't doomsday. Politics isn't about, my way or the highway. It's about working together and developing solutions that make sense for communities. The attitude that the only choice was one choice just isn't true. Caltrans has built lots of different highways in lots of different places, and they were the lead agency on the project The issue is, we need to look at solutions that work for our community, that add value to the community. I believe that a surface grade solution for the bypass would have been superior. I voted that way. I got over it when I lost the vote. I moved on, and now I'm making sure that as a member of the city and a member of COG, that I'm working as hard as I can to make sure that this project comes in on time, on budget, that it mitigates as many of the impacts as possible, and that we get as much landscaping and beautification efforts on the wall that we can possibly afford and get from state agencies. We've got it. Let's make it work for us now, and that's, we're not going to go and tear it down. Let's go forward and build our best community response to now having this traffic through the area.
Okay, thank you. In this format, you have a question for Tom before we, not on this particular issue. Do you have a question? And then after we do that, then I think we're going to open it up to individual questions in the audience. But I'd like you to go ahead and have the same opportunity as Tom.
Okay, I have a pretty simple question, at least a real open-ended question. It's not a gotcha question. It is, Tom, what would you do different in the next 4 years to address the needs of Murphys?
Well, I would try to continue the progress that we've made, quite frankly, over the last 24 years. I am very much, when we get to the general plan process, I think we need to emphasize that to the extent possible, the growth needs to happen in the community center. I have been for very many years strongly opposed to what I refer to as rural sprawl, which is going out and cutting up the ranches into 20s and 40s and 60s and building homes on dirt roads and sewers and wells and the like. So I think we need to look at the growth that is going to come over the next 4 years in Murphys. We know about where a lot of that basically will be. A lot of it will be in the Red Heart Benefit Basin. We know we have Walker's project out along Coyote Creek. We have a project that's proposed in Vallecito that hasn't really been reviewed yet. So what I want to see is the same level of progress. The next big project in Murphys, quite frankly, that will have a huge impact in Murphys will be when the housing project develops. I've been a strong advocate of extending Main Street, so now we've extended Main Street all the way out to Highway 4. We've extended Main Street all the way down to French Gulch Road. We're going to see more and more development now taking place along Victory's Road. As the housing property develops, that's going to be an absolutely critical project to the future of the community of Murphys. So I want to see, I'd like to see walking paths get developed. We know where we want them. And I say walking or pedestrian paths. We need to do a better job on improving the roads in the community center. And we need to make sure that one of the other things we need to take a look at over the next 4 years, and that'll come when we do the community plan, is we need to look at Highway 4 as it comes through Murphys, because we're having an awful lot of ingress and egress onto Highway 4, and the next bottleneck, once we get past that bypass of Angels, is going to be getting the traffic through Murphys. We need to figure out where the major intersections are going to be. Obviously, one is Tom Bell Road and Victory's Road, probably most likely. Another will be somewhere around Pennsylvania Gulch, and the other up where you turn into Wildwood, where the CDF station is. And we need to see if we can start limiting some of those ingress and egress points onto Highway 4. I've already sort of working on that to the extent we have new projects to try to limit to eliminate some of the ingress and egress we have, and to try to generate that traffic to 2 or 3 major intersections within the community. So we're going to have, I think, a lot of challenges over the next 4 years. But we've always met those challenges. And as you go out through the community and the county, and if you go to the other communities, we have Roger Brooks now coming in and doing a study of how to renovate or make the Old Town Angels Camp more vigorous. And everybody throughout the county says, basically, how can we be more like Murphy's? And I think we have a lot to be proud of as a community as to how we've evolved in 24 years. And I would hope that in 4 more years, when we go out through the community, people will still be saying, well, how can we be more like Murphy's? I mean, we initiated lots of policies that have taken hold throughout the county, and they all came out of Murphy's over the period that I've been a county supervisor, and I've been an advocate of it. One of them is all street parking, so that we can have full development on Main Street, particularly in the smaller lots. We've had lots of issues in Murphy's that have been basically adopted by other communities, and we've been very blessed with our surrounding. We don't have a state route going through us, although if we didn't have the Highway 4 bypass, we would be getting more and more through traffic going down Main Street and Angels Camp and up the Trade Road, which is, in my opinion, not where, we don't want that to become a substitute for Highway 4. So that's my answer.
I guess in this format, we shouldn't ask a question we don't know the answer to, right? So I think the key ingredient, as I look at Murphy's and as I've talked to what people have on their mind, it's how do we bring the community's infrastructure in a line so that we aren't at a deficit position. That is that we have water and wastewater services that match our current growth and are adequate for the incremental infill type of growth that the community is interested in having. Right now, the infrastructure deficit is pretty serious. There is obviously a need to modernize and rationalize our water and wastewater treatment facilities, not just in Murphy's, not just with UPUD and with MSD, but also for the whole District 4. I believe that we can do that. But I think the first step is for the community to come together, as it is, frankly, like here tonight, but perhaps on a regular basis, working through the community plan update. A step that I think is absolutely critical, a first step that's critical to updating the county general plan. I believe that that's the first step that I would recommend for Murphy's to pursue in the next 4 years. Because if we don't have a plan, then any action, okay, it takes you anywhere. If you have no destination, anything you do gets you towards there. We need a destination that is a reflection of the community's values. And to do that, I would recommend updating the general plan.
Okay, I'd like to turn it over now to some questions. We may get back to this format, but I'm sure that there's a question or two in your mind for either candidate, and if appropriate, either one or both, one at a time, can respond. I'd like you to identify yourself, and if you're, representing a group, that's one thing. If you're just an individual with a question, please do so. Give us an idea of where you're coming from, so to speak. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready for 2 or 3 days.
Oh.
I'm Bob O'Brien with Murphy's. Now, in discussing general plan update at the recent meeting, Supervisor Russ Thomas said that the dense neighborhoods proposed by smart growth advocates would get Calaveras with one of Southern California. Do you agree or disagree, and why or why not? That's for both candidates.
Before I go, would you just repeat the question so I make sure that I'm getting the
You
Bob?
can, because
Ask the question to Joanna. I think Joanna should repeat repeated, so we make sure we're answering the question.
Discussing the general plan update, Supervisor Russ Thomas said that dense neighborhoods proposed by smart growth advocates would make Calaveras look more like Southern California. Do you agree, and why or why not?
Yeah, if you'd like me to go first, I disagree. I think we're a lot better off trying to focus our growth in the community centers. And I agree that, and I've been a huge advocate of this for some time, that it needs to be on infrastructure. It needs to be on sewer, water, roads to county standards, and pedestrian and bicycle paths. Russ, in my opinion, has always been, since he's been on the board, sort of an advocate of rural sprawl. I mean, he sees nothing, as I would define it, he sees nothing wrong with 20s and 40s or 60s in buying big ranches. One in his district was the Red House Ranch that was bought and totally cut up on Hunt Road, which is an F- road. Made absolutely no sense at all. I advocated a moratorium when that happened, but the board would not go forward with it, and now we have houses and development out there on an F- road, no benefit basin, no payment for roads, no anything. We have problems like that. If you look down at the Valley Springs, Burson, and Wallace, you basically have one planned development, and that's Lock and Tenta. And everything else is on is on water and wells, where they're hauling water, for God's sakes, to Wallace Lake Estates, because the wells have all gone bad. They're hauling, even in Russ's district down in Diamond 20, they're hauling water because the wells have gone bad. There's just, there's no planning. And I always tell the environmentalists, who I consider friends, but who we disagree on these issues, they always came in and stopped growth in Valley Springs. And what did they get? They got rural sprawl because they would not plan for growth. And now they realize they need to plan for growth, but you still have all the rural sprawl out there. And it's one of the issues that swirls all around the Trinitas project, besides permitting. But you take permitting out of it, what are the issues swirling around all that? It's basically rural sprawl issues, in my opinion. And so I strongly disagree with Russ, and I think we need to plan the communities, and we need to focus growth in the community centers. And we need to, and that also allows us to protect our open space in a rather significant way without, just going out and punitively trying to protect it, which I'm not punitively doing it. So that's my answer.
Would you explain the term punitively?
Did I spell what?
Explain what you mean when you say punitively protect.
Well, that means you're going to go out and you're going to either zone it against the landowner's will, or you're going to go out and try to control how he manages it and say, oh, you can't cut oak trees, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. I'm not for doing that. I think, I think we need to have positive rewards. People respond to positive incentives, not to negative incentives. If you want to turn oak trees into liabilities, then people will get rid of oak trees. And then they will come back and say, see, I was right, there's less oak trees. Well, no kidding.
I have a question.
Just a minute.
Trust me, Sam.
Bob, I understood your question. I lived in Southern California when I was going to college, so I kind of saw in Orange County. I think that Orange County could be the poster county for not smart growth. And if you've ever been to Garden Grove, it's probably the number one community in that. It's the worst kind of sprawl that happens. It's kind of a mishmash of suburban and rural, where almost nothing linked up. The freeways and the surface streets and the sprawl of the cities, and you just kind of got a tapestry now that goes indistinguishably from Orange County to Los Angeles County to Riverside County and so forth. That's truly the worst case. I think it's the worst, or the, what do you want to call it, dumb growth. When you do that, when you destroy the identity of communities, that is not smart growth. I believe that smart growth is one of those buzzwords. What it means is being intelligent, designing communities based on community values. Not every community is going to look alike. Not every design is going to be right for every location, for every configuration. Communities need to be in charge and empowered to create the charters that make their communities live and work for themselves. That's my approach. I think that some of the elements, transit-oriented development is another one of those buzzwords where you do want to create a pattern that is balanced so that you have some areas of high density, usually for lower income housing. You have some areas where there are nice vistas and estates, and you don't want to destroy the viewscapes. You need a variety of solutions in any vibrant community, just as you need a variety of economic engines in any community to be viable.
Yes, Cynthia?
I'd like to make sort of
Identify yourself.
Oh, Cynthia Trade,
Thank you.
I'd like to sort of make a county-wide comment that I'd like you each to consider. I don't think we need a replacement for Stephanie Marino. I think that the two departments should work independently as they have in the past, because it was another layer of bureaucracy that took up somebody's time and another position to pay for. I think we should put those funds into additional planners who require less money and are probably in more need right now than most anything in the county. And I would like some attention to put to that, because I think maybe the idea of the county supervisors might be to continue that position. And I would like to see that position not continue.
Either one of you have a response to it?
I guess I'll give a response. That goes back to the issues which we could take all night discussing.
No, you can't.
No.
We don't want to do that.
The board decided to do that. They wanted a community development agency. Prior to that, we had two standalone departments, a building department and a planning department. I was adamantly opposed to combining the two departments. Back then is when we were still in the boom time, so it's hard to discuss it when we're in, we're in the down times for real estate. But back then we were in the boom time for real estate, and that's when it was absolutely red hot. And the board decided, well, we want to have a community development agency. They thought there was some commonality of interest there. Quite frankly, I do not see any particular commonality of interest between building, going out and doing inspections on your building, or plan checking and doing planning, which is zoning in the general plan and that type of work. When you put them together, you have, and back then we had a lot of openings. I mean, we were having a very hard time processing, not that it got any better over the last few years, but we were having a hard time processing applications because we couldn't hire people, because we couldn't compete with the private sector, because, like I said, it was boom times. The private sector just hired all the good talent, and there just wasn't a lot of good talent out there, if there was any talent. And I wanted to fill the position. My argument was we needed more Indians. It was not a commonality of interest. We didn't need a super chief. The board decided they wanted a super chief. When you went with a super chief, then you had to pay a little over $100,000 for the super chief. The super chief had to have a secretary. You had to have a secretary's office. You had to have a super chief's office. That added about $200,000 plus or minus in cost to the general fund to provide that. I wanted to take that money and up the compensation for the plan checkers and the builders and planners so that we could compete more effectively with the private sector. Since then, obviously, it's come down. Most positions are now filled because, boy, they're just very happy to come work for the county in this environment. So we're not having a hard time today attracting competent people to fill those positions. At least that's what I'm told, and that seems to make sense given the economy. But I still see not enough of a commonality of interest to have a super chief rather than a chief building official and a chief planning official. So,
Did you?
Okay, community development agencies are pretty common throughout California and throughout the nation. There generally are three elements in any community development agency. There's a building department, there's a planning department, and there's a strategic planning department. I don't think the CDD in Calaveras has ever had a strategic element to it. It seems to me that it didn't make sense to create such a position unless you're going to follow the kind of track-proven model. The city also has, most of you know, the city does its own planning and zoning and its own general plan update. So we've also had to consider how do we staff and organize planning and inspection in our city. And we made the decision to actually downsize that function because as we looked at the economy, there was not the level of activity. Planning and particularly inspection should be pretty much self-supporting activities so that they're fee-based. They should run pretty much at the level at which the economy is supporting so that you can grow when you need to grow and you can scale back when times are slow as they are now. So my solution is always to be flexible. That is, it is a business element of government when you do these fee-based services. Any business that can't cut back on its inventory or cut back on its employees during down times is not going to be a very successful business. And any business that can't grow when demand is increasing won't be a successful public service. So my view is that we need to constantly manage those departments to be appropriately scaled and staffed to serve the needs of the county.
In the back?
Joanne Ellie, I'm a resident of the county. Since we're on the planning stage and all the housing development, can you give us an update on the situation over at Brevard Center with the roads and what's going on over there?
Yes, I can. Maybe I should. Everybody hear me all right?
What was the question?
Yeah.
The question was basically the intersection out here, the Highway 4, big
And
trees.
the housing fields
And what?
and the development itself.
Well, okay.
That's the high school. So you know,
Could we have that whole question repeated, please?
I figured that would be the first question asked tonight, so I'm surprised we're so far into it. The intersection is anticipated to be completed some point around the 15th of October, probably cleanup and everything done by the 1st of November. Jim Hurryford of Gold Country Electric has been working out there for about a week now. He probably has a week or 10 days to go. As soon as he finishes with the electrical, George Reed will come in and finish the intersection, both intersections, the one from the bridge onto Big Trees Road and Highway 4, and George Reed will come in and do them both rather than come in and do one and then another. Caltrans put a lot of pressure on it to get done this construction season. The county put a lot of pressure on Caltrans to say, please get this done this construction season. So it looks like that is going to happen. I spoke to Jack Couch this morning. He's been in Europe for, I guess, about the last 10 days or 2 weeks. He swam the English Channel. He said he did it in 15 minutes. 15 hours and 11 minutes. I said, good for you, Jack. But he's back in town now. I talked to Jim Hurryford late this afternoon. He said, yes, he's out there doing the work. He thought he'd be here tonight. He said his son's soccer match, so I thought he would show up late. Oh, Jim is here. Okay. So if I'm saying something inaccurate, Jim, please jump in. But we anticipate the intersection, et cetera, to be done. Now, as far as when will build out take or happen for the residential development, that's market driven. And right now, the market is not accommodative to adding houses. We had several houses earlier in the spring that were in foreclosure out in the Bret Harte Benefit Basin area. So I'm not pushing anybody to build a lot of houses until we can absorb those houses. I mean, the last thing we want is to build a development and have what happened down in Copper and have it auctioned you want to see what happens to your property values, do that. So I think, going slow, and I'm not pushing anybody to build houses until there's clearly a demand, and we have absorbed those that are currently in foreclosure. So I don't see build out taking place until the market changes.
Ron Clash, resident of Memphis. I'd like to address this to Tom, and Lena, I appreciate it if you would answer as well. Why did you feel it was so necessary to, poor choice of words, expose the grand jury report in the manner in which you did, with no fact, no information, tremendous amount of innuendo, and not only assault the other board members on the board, but also employees with respect to their sexual innuendos, their religion, and their relationship with one another? How does that benefit our community as represented?
Well, it caused a considerable amount of change in the county government center. I never thought that I would hold the mantle of, I guess, whistleblower, but that's sort of where I ended up, given the events that were taking place down there. The grand jury released their report. Supervisor Walensky basically went over and obtained a lot of files, took them to the Calaveras Enterprise. The Enterprise wrote a story that basically debunked or implied that the grand jury was totally inaccurate in their assertions. I thought that was entirely inappropriate. When the grand jury issues a report, it comes to the board sends it out to department heads for responses, and then the board offers its response. So I released my the report that I had given the grand jury. I made it very clear that these were worthy items for investigation. They were not truths, or they wouldn't need to be investigated, and I could just present the truths. And those were having huge effects upon how county government was operating. And I felt that I had to defend the grand jury report. We had done this almost a year prior to the grand jury report's release. I had lots of people in the user community coming to me and saying, Tom, what are you going to do? I mean, the management is absolutely unacceptable. I mean, you're destroying lives. There's hardly a person in those departments that didn't file grievances. I mean, we were just, reviewing grievances one after another. It was extremely divisive. I was losing good friends because I wasn't doing anything, or I wasn't doing enough. And all I could tell them is just hold on to your powder, and there's nothing I can do. I'm a minority down there. It's clearly a 3-2 vote. And that you're going to have to wait till the grand jury report comes out. And they would always ask me, well, Tom, how do you know what the grand jury report's going to say? And I would say, I don't know what the grand jury report's going to say, but I don't see how it can say anything other than basically what it did say. And I felt that given how that was received by the board, Steve's reaction, the Enterprise's article, that I had to do something to defend the grand jury. I don't think if I had not done that, I'm not sure that the actions that were taken by the board would have been taken. Because quite frankly, they were very reluctantly taken by a majority of the board.
And the personal attacks. Why did you feel that was
personal attacks? You send a report to the grand jury and you ask for an investigation. I don't know.
So you didn't make any personal attacks during this whole event?
It's just like the
report. It's a matter of character.
Did you read the report? I basically said at the end, I have absolutely no proof of these, absolute proof of these items. These are worthy of investigation. I strongly encourage the grand jury to look at all of these items. And I released it to defend the grand jury report, because quite frankly, we wouldn't be here today having some of these conversations if I hadn't defended, in my opinion, if I hadn't defended that grand jury report. So if you find that unacceptable, so be it. But quite frankly, there was absolutely rejoicing amongst the employees, and not just in that department, when action was finally taken by this board of supervisors. I don't think you'll understand the living hell that the employees were going through down there. You don't understand the lives of
No, but what, I'm just questioning.
I don't think you understand where we work. When I
You've been there
took that
24 years,
action,
you should.
and
Can we go back
when
to
Marita
Marcus,
also
please?
signed that report.
Okay, I think the points are understood on this side. Lee, do you have a response in any of this, or
You know, one of the most common questions I've been asked since I threw my hat in the ring was, why would you want to do this job? And I must tell you, I did not seek the job, it sought me. But I do feel strongly that there are fundamental rights. The right of due process is one of the most cherished and basic rights. Many of you know that I taught political science early in my career, and then I've had the joy of teaching at Columbia College in night school for a couple of years. Teaching people about civics is an important part of promoting, maintaining and growing our democracy. Grand juries are a very, very, very core ingredient in our legal process. They occupy a very special position, that very privileged position. It is an institution that must be treated with extreme care, both by those who exercise it and those who are responsible to it. I feel that the grand jury process must run its course. It hasn't completed that course yet. Therefore, I believe that we must allow it to complete its natural report and response. I look forward, like I hope most of you do, to reading the response from those agencies that the grand jury has requested such a response. However, I think that the issue that Tom spoke to isn't really the grand jury process. The grand jury did not choose to respond to his accusations. I believe that what I hear is that the end justified the means. I think that's a very dangerous mantra to carry. It allows a lot of serious abuses of power to occur when you allow yourself to become, I guess, above decency, above civility, so that bearing false witness doesn't matter. I think it does matter. I think it matters whether it's to a grand jury or to your neighbor. I think we're fundamentally asked, particularly when we step forward in public life, we are expected to exhibit the highest standards of behavior. And I don't count myself as never making a mistake. I've got a speeding ticket. I wish I could do better on a lot of things. But I certainly do hold myself to the concept that the end does not justify the means. That I owe an obligation of respect and courtesy to every citizen that I come into contact with. When they speak at any public hearing, I owe them my respect and regard. And to the best of my human ability, I give it. That's the way I expect. And that's what I expect out of the grand jury and out of those agencies that have been asked to respond. And I, like you, will form my opinions when I have all the facts. Thank you.
My name is Nicole Brunel. I'm an individual with a question. I agree with Tryon on most of his points. I think he's done a very good job. I'm wondering, why are you running against him? Like, what are your issues with him? What are your hot points? What do you disagree with? There's some reason that you think he should be out and he should be in.
Good question. Thank you.
I didn't hear the question.
Oh. Can I rephrase it? Why am I running against Tom? Cover it?
Boy, that's a
You
good
disagree
question.
with. I'm wondering why do you disagree with him with his issue? If he usually 4-1, 3-2, I think we need more people like him. Do you think you fall on the side of the other supervisors more often?
I don't think I fall on anybody's side. I've been able to serve on the city council in Angels Camp without falling on anybody's side. People elected me to serve them. not the other members of the council or the other members get elected, members of the board. I'm running because there are some fundamental issues. Tom and I disagree fundamentally on the question of the county transit system. Okay, that's a example. I think we disagree on our attitudes about the role of government in the county. I believe that Tom talks a lot about asking builders to do this and not encouraging people to do that. He says it's market driven, but it sounds like a big hand trying to massage the market, if you wish. I believe in our system of economy. It is a joint system. We need to work as we did the Joint Economic Development Summit sponsored by the city and the county. We brought over 170 people together to work through our issues. Those are the opportunities for the community to build on its strengths to achieve its objectives, not the objectives of any one individual or any clustering of those individuals. I'm a very strong advocate of open government. I've done that on the city council, and I will try to do it on the board of supervisors.
Yes.
Am I allowed to comment a little bit here?
Sure. I would like both of you, though, to, since we've got a lot of questions out here, to try to focus.
I don't see any specifics really is sort of giving you as far as, geez, I want to change this. I don't want to address the access points on Highway 4. I don't think we should do off-street parking. I don't think we should do what? I think we've done a pretty good job. And my bet is in 4 years from now, people will still be saying, geez, why can't we be more like Murphy's? And I hope Angel solves their problems, but the Angels will also be saying, why can't we be more like Murphy's? And there are different competitive advantages between Angels and Murphy's. But I think it's apples and oranges when Lee compares planning and building in the city to the planning and building department in the county. I mean, the city basically, over 15 years, has had 3 significant projects. One was Angels Oaks, one was Stelby Park, and one was Greenhorn, and they don't really have any significant projects on the board today. I mean, we have huge projects down in the Valley Springs area. We have huge projects in the Copperopolis area. We have significant projects in my area. We have some significant projects up in Marita's area. So comparing the city's planning and building departments, which is, I think, consists of 1 or 2 people, probably 2 or 3 people maybe, I don't know. But that's apples and oranges. And just lastly, on this open government issue, I am an absolute advocate of open government. The reason Marita and I filed the grand jury report is we felt we didn't have open government. We felt the 2 districts, District 1 and District 4, were not receiving any representation, or very limited representation on certain issues from the Board of Supervisors, because issues were not coming to the Board of Supervisors. They were being, in my opinion, and Marita's at the time, decided outside of the Board of Supervisors. There's nothing I did, like going to the grand jury, that's inappropriate. There's nothing I did that isn't totally open in releasing the report I filed with the grand jury, the allegations. I mean, how can it be more open than it is? So I would like someone to come up with something that Tom Tryon did that doesn't represent open government. That it was the lack of open government that drove us to the grand jury. Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question, please, from Mr. Tryon.
Yes.
I live in Copperopolis, Lake Tallock.
Mm-hmm.
You said you are against too much. You are for open spaces. At the same time, you said that you have to get rid of all these foreclosures before you start letting them build some more. Why did you go against the building department and approve building of 30 units of condominiums on Lake Tallock, on a commercial area? You were one of the 3 that approved it.
Yes.
Against Trident, against your own building department, And the next question I have is, why are you so adamant to close the lake to boating traffic as far as power boating? I don't understand this.
Let me answer the first one. First one is, the building department did not bring a recommendation. Building does plan checks and inspections. It was the planning department that brought the recommendation.
That's what I
And the planning department recommended approval. It did not recommend that it not be approved. If you look at the EIR, what we're talking about is where the commercial area is, just before Paris Ferry Bridge, and they're taking out that commercial area. So if you looked at it, all the environmental impacts are less than currently exist, not all, maybe not all, but just about all, I'm sure there's some exceptions, are less than what the new project proposed. And that's why it was proposed to go forward on a negative deck, because the baseline was such, which was the current development, which was, I think, the restaurant, and I think there was a slight, I think there was some overnight accommodations, I want to say hotel or whatever, et cetera. And that looked to me, to have 30 units of townhouses down there, looked to me to be a very good project. I did not see a basis for saying no. There was certainly no environmental basis for saying no. The sole basis that Tri-Dam was against it is because some of the units were going to be built out over the water. Quite frankly, if they own the ground under the water, and Tri-Dam has an easement, a storage and flow easement for the water, then it seems to me if you own the ground under the water, you should be, under property rights law, you should be able to build above the water as long as you don't affect the storage and the flowage easement. It's an easement, it's not a property right. Excuse me, an easement is a property right, but it's not a fee property right. The reason I keep talking about maybe we should look at Tulloch and go to a non-motorized lake is twofold. Number one, the greatest impacts on water quality, since some of that goes for drinking water, is basically oil and gas. If you talk to people that have to treat the water for drinking water, one of the greatest environmental challenges and one of the most costly is taking oil and gas out of the water. The second reason I think that should be looked at is because everybody's always complaining about the lakes overcrowded, and there's too many boats, and there's going to be accidents, and we have jet skis and water skis and whatever else on a very small, what is considered anyway to be a very small lake. And so what they want to do is limit access. Well, the public has a right to access. I mean, a lot of people down there almost want to turn it into, in my opinion, somewhat of a private lake, and I don't think that's right. It's a public lake, it's public access. Either you're going to go to some rationing system, or you're going to have to change the operational aspects of the lake. If you went to non-motorized, then there's plenty of space for all those, and the water quality goes up. And we have a motorized lake in New Maloney's that's huge and, quite frankly, somewhat underutilized. So that's the reason for that.
Okay, let me interject a point here.
I got a question.
We have time afterward. If you have an individual question, particularly if it doesn't have to do with, we're really focusing on Murphy's here in the area. There's a lot of things that you can look at, and so I would like for you to focus from that standpoint. And if you have questions later on, I'm sure both of our candidates here will be available to take individual questions that really aren't, concerning you. Yes.
Me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Introduce
Bill
yourself.
Mason. I'm from Murphy, been in Murphy since 1981, so I've seen a lot of things I know. And I'd like to know what the two contestants here have to think about how we are going to, as Murphyites, make a progress on the fact that we've had about $6 or $7 million worth of free advertisement of the great town of Murphys. And what either one of your plans are to help that free advertisement worldwide make Murphy's even a better place than it is now, which is a fantastic place because I've lived here a long time. And the only problem I have is with the fact that, if you look at this thing, and also I'm the planning commissioner for you you guys. You got a problem with us, right? Anyway, so that's a clear and open thing, right? But the difference between Amador and Tuolumne counties is that the capital county seat of Amador is Jackson. The county seat of Tuolumne is Sonora. That's where the government officials are, that's where the stuff is. Our county has two major population areas, one big, one possibly bigger, not counting Angels Camp because that's the city. Copperopolis area and Valley Springs. The capital, for you who live in San Andreas, I'm sorry to tell you this, is in a backwater town of San Andreas. So it is.
I think you should run for District 1 soon.
My only question is what are you guys going to do to get this county out of the dead field and into a progressiveness to attract business here so people can work and get things done? Now, I know Murphy's is a classic example of a great thing, but we're talking about a whole lot of money and free advertisement, and not much of that was done locally. Thank you.
Well, Bill, I think we've started that journey, perhaps a bit tardy in beginning it, but the Joint Economic Development Summit, I think, was a great first launch point. As I mentioned before, we had over 170 people from all over the county come together in a very effective way of coming together commonly and then breaking out into interest groups, different disciplines, different industries, then coming back together, again, melding the uniqueness with the common, strengthening the vitality of our economy. I think the things that are starting to come out of that, there's some small projects coming out. Those obviously come out easier. They're the things that can get launched more quickly. Then we laid some foundation for some larger projects, such as development of a wood pelletization factory that makes use of local natural resources, could possibly use local natural renewable energy sources, including hydro and solar, to create a worldwide a commodity. Wood pellets are a worldwide commodity in demand. And this gives us actually something where we can export a value-added product, not just raw material, but something that's been formed and shaped, and if you use it in a pellet barbecue, you can even flavor them. This is a kind of small industry that draws on our existing strengths, the assets that are already here, and allows us to create good quality jobs that extend that brand around the world. And it is a global marketplace these days. So I believe that's an example. The Joint Economic Development Summit would be where I would say we made a good first start, and we need to continue to move in that direction. And we have to
What's being advertised, but I'm assuming you're referring to the Murphy's area?
Just to clarify that, the Wall Street Journal, Sunset Magazine, all those magazines,
I got it.
a couple of World Traveler magazines,
I got it.
outstanding articles about the absolutely wonderful town of Murphy.
I
That will not last forever.
Well-
We need to jump on that and move on.
Okay. I would respectfully disagree somewhat with Bill. I mean, yeah, we received that advertising because people came here and loved the community and said, my God, they're doing things right. We fought like the Dickens to get the ag zoning through that helped so much with the vineyards. And we have the wine tasting, we have fine dining in Murphy's, we have the arts, whether it be Black Bart, Murphy's Theater Group. We have the concerts in the park. We have the concerts at Ironstone. So we have the art galleries downtown. We've developed something in which most of what we do complements all the other components. And to me, that's critical. That you can't find almost anything in Murphy's. That we have a great catering industry. We have a wonderful flower shop. I was told by one person, if you want a good flower shop, make sure you get a mortuary in town. Well, we don't have a mortuary, but we have a wonderful flower shop. That's basically, two wonderful flower shops, 0 mortuaries, and most flower shops are basically living off weddings and the like. And when you have the kind of commerce and culture and the land that Murphy's has, then it's always beautiful, because you go downtown, everything's well landscaped. You're going to have weddings, it's well landscaped. You have wine tasting, it's well landscaped. I mean, and so people come and see that, and they've written about it, and they've written very nice things. And I don't know if it's $6 million, but they're substantial. I mean, we're in lots of magazines now. I have a stack of them at home that I thought on one of these forums I'd bring them and have Brent guard them and let everybody look at all the wonderful things in Sunset and all these wonderful magazines. But I don't think it's just going to die. I think if we continue doing good things, people will continue writing about us. And we will continue to get that level of publicity. I don't think it's going to just go away. And one of the keys to that is we have to keep, we have to make sense of the growth we're going to have. We're not going to have Walmart open on the household property. That's not where we're going. You're going to get more. I mean, the competitive advantage for significant retail is Angel's Camp, because it's at the crossroads of 4 and 49. Murphy's is not at the crossroads of anything. We have Highway 4 going through us. But I think we've done a good job. I think we can continue to do a good job. I think our growth is going to continue. I think it will be good quality growth. And if we do that, then it will continue to write about us. I don't think we have to come up with something that's totally worldwide. What Pellets is going to do that for us, quite frankly. So, my comment.
Yes,
Haven't heard much tonight about the general plan.
identify yourself.
Dave Self, I think they will.
But there's other people besides this.
The general plan is still out there. Moreno's gone, and it's kind of in a hiatus to the public. Would each of you please comment on the general plan and whether you believe Murphy's should update its community plan to be part of the general plan?
Well, as I said earlier, I think the general plan should be based on community plans. The county is a composite of communities, not the other way around. So I would urge that communities, just as Valley Springs has recently received monies to move forward with their transportation-based community plan, I believe that Murphy's and the other communities should also be pursuing updates to their community plans. It is the way that people articulate their desires for the future and the objectives and the boundaries they want to set on those futures. So I believe these community plans are an important ingredient in moving the general plan process forward.
I agree that both the general plan and the community plan need to be updated. But the general plan needs to be done first, because quite frankly, most of the controversy, I mean, there'll be as much controversy in each of the community plans as there is in the general plan, because controversy comes from people, and people live in the communities. So if we don't get the general plan done, and it's not difficult to tie the community plan back into the general plan. But if you want to say, well, let's do the general plan, and let's concurrently do Murphy's and Arnold and Avery and Copper and Valley Springs and West Point and Oak Hill, it's not going to happen in our lifetime. It'll be like another bypass. So you've got to take it to the point where if there's controversy in one community plan, it doesn't stop the whole general plan process, because you're doing it concurrently and it all has to happen at once. So I'm a big advocate of updating the general plan. We are in the process of doing that. And then once that's updated, then go back to the community plans, because you don't hold up the general plan if there's controversy in a particular community plan. So if we're doing the community plans and there's controversy in Copper, it doesn't hold up the Murphy's community plan, and vice versa. But if you tie it to a concurrent general plan, then it holds up the general plan, and everything comes to a halt, and we all just wear out. So there has to be an ordering that makes some sense. Secondly, I'm a big advocate of taking the general plan coordinator out of the planning department and having basically a contract general plan coordinator and put it in the administrative department and have that person coordinate with the board, the administrative office, planning, and county council, and to a significant extent the general public. One of my big worries is if we leave it in planning, then it gets bogged down with planning issues, because the general plan coordinator is not necessarily a full-time job. I mean, it gets busy and then it gets slow. And so you put them in planning for her. Thank you, Rita. And then they get assigned projects, and the general plan starts to lag. So I would like to have somebody that just absolutely focuses on the general plan, reports, coordinates with planning, administration, county council, and the board of supervisors, and the public at large, because I think that's the most professional, most competent, and most efficient way to get it done in a timely manner.
Dave?
David Bowman, I'm a business person and a resident here in town, also a member of the Calaveras County Business Council that's been formed in the last year. I love Murphy's. My grandparents moved here in '70. I've lived here for probably 15 years now. But I want to draw attention that we can't just think about Murphy's when we're here. We aren't an incorporated city. Angels has the luxury or the privilege of thinking for their own because they have their own responsibility. But if somebody's well is going dry in Burson, or there's a lack of sales tax revenue, it doesn't matter. Our sales tax revenue here, no matter how well we do as a business community, gets diffused into the general plan. So we have a responsibility in Murphy's. If we're some of the haves, they are not, the problems at the county level cannot be just solved by boosterism of Murphy's. We have a responsibility to our citizens in other parts of the county to both support them in their economic growth. It's not a takeaway. We get a lot of sales tax revenue in Copperopolis or in Valley Springs. That helps us because that can help us with our infrastructure up here. So I think the role of the Murphy's Business Association is to boost this as much as possible. But you know, at $100 a year dues, we're not going to be able to pave a lot of crumbling roads here. We have a responsibility as Murphy citizens, educated, intelligent, well-informed, to be working not just for what's good for our area, yes, to elect who we feel is the best person to represent our interest in our District 4, but boy, we've got to look at this as a county level, because if we don't, if we're living our own little park, our own little bucolic, wonderful thing, and the rest of the county is going to hell in a handbasket, I guarantee you that the quality of life in Murphy will follow right along. We've got responsibilities countywide. People dry wells, figure out how to get infrastructure to these people, how to do growth so that the existing and future infrastructure. Otherwise, we're just going to be accused of having been sort of inward looking at this. So it's not. I'm saying that it's not good enough to just say, well, what about Murphy's? I want to talk about Murphy's. These folks, one of these two people is going to represent our interests here, but we've got county-wide issues. And if you think our issues are just here, or if it's just about what kind of sign is something, we got big issues. We have responsibility and privileges to everyone else in these other areas. And I would like to see an expanded view of our responsibility as citizens here.
Thank you.
My name is Carolyn. Stand up, please. My name is Carolyn Angel. I live in Murphy's. I've lived in Arms since 1990, but then I moved to Murphy's recently. My question is, you, Mr. Seaton, have been on the council of the only city in our county. I wonder what you've learned from working in a city government that you believe you could bring to strengthen county government, so that, example, if we call to get reports about construction and so on, and we get past that, we don't seem to have power to get answers, and we don't have a government behind us. The only person we can go to is the county representative. How would you
bring your experience in municipal government to strengthen our abilities to communicate with the county representatives?
Okay, thank you, Carl. I'll take that first. I guess that it seems to me that working on the city council has given me an exposure to a lot of issues that are common throughout the communities, even if they're not quote unquote supervisor responsibilities. For example, in the city, water and wastewater are run by the city. So we've had to deal with the challenges of ever increasing regulations, whereas in Murphy's, those responsibilities don't reside with the supervisor, they reside with the special districts, Murphy Sanitation and the Union Public Utility District. So what I have is, as my experience is, I bring a detailed or a first line responsibility as a man, as the board of directors, you might say, and the city council functions for those areas that are beyond the supervisor's responsibility. So that's one thing. I have more familiarity, I guess, in that context. The second is that, as I mentioned, as members of the city council and being the only city, I don't know if it's always a benefit, sometimes it's a burden, we also serve on the intergovernment agencies that are required, the Local Agency Formation Commission, the Council of Governments, which is our regional transportation plan. So I've been able to work on those organizations in parallel with members of the board, so that I've actually been working with them as a colleague on some of these broad issues like transportation that affect not only Murphy's, but the regional transportation plan. Murphy's is an integral part of how we get county circulation to work for us. So I think those are my experiences, that I've worked both at the county regional level and at these particular special areas. Water, public safety is another area. The city police department reports to. I actually participated in the hiring of the last 2 chiefs of police. We don't do that. The Board of Supervisors doesn't do that at the county level because that's an independently elected job. But you do have to, the board does have to approve the budget for those, for the sheriff's department. So my experience working through county issues, law enforcement staffing issues, funding issues, how do we get grant money? Those I have handling experience, and that I would bring to the Board of Supervisors. So I think those are some of those things. But I think I think there's one more element to that, and that is I'm elected in the city to represent everybody in the city. If I'm elected in the board, in the district, then I'll be your representative. And if somebody from another district has an issue that involves issues in common, like the regional transportation, then I also understand that I have a responsibility to serve Calaveras as a whole. So I think I understand those, at least those 3 levels of responsibility. I think I've learned how to match them up with the requirement. That would be my answer to that question. Thank you.
Since I've been here longer, I guess I can say I probably served a lot longer on LAFCO and probably have more years on the local, the LTC, which then became the COG. But those are joint interests between the county and the city. They both have public members that are appointed by the city and the county members, and there's nobody that's a stronger advocate of infrastructure, but almost at the top, water, sewer, and roads, that I am. And like I said, I was there was a LAFCO, not LAFCO, but LTC, Local Transportation Commission, when we signed the Tri-County Agreement, that finally got some funding put in place. We just renewed that agreement. We're hoping to get the road fixed. It's called the Wagon Trail project between Angels and Copper. Earlier, Lee had said, well, it was $70 million for the Highway 4 bypass. He misspoke there. That's about a $37 million project. The $70 million one's the one between Angels and copper for, I think, 5 miles of road. You know, it was about 10 years ago, the rule of thumb was $1 million a mile. and look where we are today. It's just sort of mind-numbing. I mean, you wonder how you're ever going to have enough money for infrastructure given what the costs are today. There's a big difference between the city council and the board of supervisors. You know, when it comes to Murphy and most of the governmental issues that have been in Murphy's, you know, have followed my advocacy. When I say my, I mean as a member of your representative on the board, and I meet with a lot of people in Murphy's. You know, it's very different. I don't know what it would be like if I had, you know, if the board of supervisors were, what do we have, 5 members? If the sort of board of supervisors were 25 members, and there were 5 members representing Murphy's. I mean, can you imagine? That's what it is on the city council. I mean, you have 5 members representing Angels, which is probably about the size of Murphy's. I just can't even hardly imagine how you make that work. Obviously, the city does make it work, but that to me would be extremely frustrating. But you know, to equate the city council with the board, you know, that's a little bit of an apples and oranges equation also.
I think that I want to make sure it's correct. The Wagon Trail project has been capped at $40 million. We had the kickoff meeting on last Friday morning. So it is a project that will have a tremendous impact on the character of Highway 4 between Copper and Angels, which obviously directly links people coming up the highway for a corridor. So I think that is important that people understand that this project is coming, and getting involved now is the surest way to ensure that our community needs are represented throughout the process. These projects take years. Everybody needs to be involved at the beginning and articulate. So there will be public hearings that will be orchestrated so that the community can come and articulate and record their inputs, and that process will be honored as long as I'm involved, so that the community integrity is preserved throughout the project life.
This program was described as lasting for about an hour and a half, and I think that we're probably there. I know there are a lot of more questions. I think both of our candidates here agreed to stay and talk to people and answer questions.
But we want first dibs at the cookie.
Yeah, the cookies are back here. We have ice water. And one other thing, I've had a request to let you know that the Measure K information on the Bret Hart bond, Measure K is here. We have a number of brochures, and anyone who wants to know more about that, please pick some of these up and continue to enjoy the evening. And I really want to thank our 2 candidates